Hey, it's Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast. How's it going, guys? Hope you're having a wonderful week so far. If you go to my show notes, what's new with Wrap Your Head Around Silks? Teacher Training Silks Level 1 is going to be June 24th and 25th of this year. I will open up registration very soon, plus some free gifts for you to check out my teaching style. I also have some great free resources on my website, so just check there. I'll rehab my full course, and then, of course, a mini course for free if you just want to check it out. All right, guys, today's so exciting. We have Dr. Rebecca Ann Runge again today from the Detroit area. She is now a new mom. She's in her fourth trimester, which I like to call purgatory, where everything's cloudy. And I've had her on 2 times before to talk about her 2 losses, her journey through IVF and DNA testing, and now with her rainbow baby, Charlie. So this is such an amazing story. I will link in the show notes her 2 previous episodes so you can catch up on the entire story if you like. Let's get the rest of the story from Rebecca Ann. Rebecca, first thing I want to say is congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Where are you guys at in the fourth trimester? Are you still in the 4th trimester right now?
Yeah, I think so. She is 6 weeks old, so going on 7 weeks on Saturday.
So you guys are a month and a half in. I call that purgatory, where nothing is real and it's all very fuzzy. Have you guys, what's the sleeping like?
It's not terrible. We actually had a good night last night. She periodically will sleep through the night, and then we'll think, oh, maybe this will start, and then it goes back to
even if you just had 1 or 2 of those, that's winning, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're pretty lucky.
Oh, we've got. She's been a little bit. She went to Mama Kisses a lot recently. Do you want to say hi? Would you like to say hi to your listeners? You can say it a little louder. Say it a little louder.
Hi.
Say, hi, listeners. Say, I'm your host, the Bean. Okay, so Dr. Rebecca Ann Runge. So this is our 3rd installment of we're going to call it the trilogy right now.
Yeah.
And I will link those episodes in the show notes. So if people who have not been caught up on your story, they can start from the beginning, because it has been a long, winding road. You guys have been through so much emotionally and financially and a lot, and physically for you to get to this. Do we call these little miracles rainbow babies?
Yeah, that is a popular term. Not everybody loves it, but I identify with that. I think that makes sense to me. So yeah, the period after, storm of emotions, which it's never over. But yeah, post grief, post loss, some joy.
Basically, I think that our listeners knew that you were in the process of the IVF and the process of doing the genetic testing. I think that we knew that.
Yeah, I think I had explained, a lot of the IVF process. And last time we talked, I was pregnant. So it was post-transfer, but it was still pretty early on. I know when we recorded, it was 1st trimester, but I think by the time it got released, I was 2nd trimester.
Yeah, so you were really early in it, but you wanted to announce it and you wanted to talk about it because, so important for those moms out there, those families out there that are going through the same thing. Let's get go ahead and give us like a download of what happened after that.
As I progressed through my pregnancy, it was just kind of balancing, after loss. I think it's difficult for a lot of women being pregnant and kind of going through the emotional process and the hormonal process. Whatever has happened during those previous pregnancies, it's hard to want to get your hopes up, or, you're constantly thinking something could happen. You sort of take everything with a grain of salt, but I was pretty determined to try to enjoy my pregnancy a little bit more than my previous two. Because I really felt like I had to stunt the whole process. Previously I'd never had a baby shower, for instance, and I never took maternity photos. And so I tried to do those things this time around. And that was really nice, to try to have inform those memories. I'm luckily a pretty easy pregnant person. I don't get any of the nausea problems. So most of my pregnancy went really well. I was still teaching aerial through second trimester. I had an instructor that I was kind of training to take over the Next Step Trapeze curriculum that I had just written. So she was training with me during kind of the end of my second trimester. So she was able to do some of the demonstration for me when there were certain moves that were just, not possible, or like around the belly or those kind of things. So it was really nice to have that extra support, but still be able to be there and be active and be the voice, do a lot of talking through the teaching. So that was good. And then I did my aerial maternity photos, and that was a wonderful experience too, with a woman who also does aerial and is a photographer over in the Detroit area. So that was a nice experience. And then let's see, third trimester, I was just kind of doing aerial for me at that point. I stopped teaching. I was just like meeting with my instructors and practicing some things or doing what felt good with my body. I really didn't push myself as hard either. I think with all the things that I'd been through before, I was a lot more accepting of the whole process, like the body changes and not worrying too much about keeping up, my aerial exercise exactly how I wanted to, or those kind of things. So I didn't push myself, and I think it actually felt better. And I think, I haven't been back to the studio quite yet, but I'm planning on it starting now. So, and I have a feeling I'm actually going to end up rehabbing better. I did perform though while I was pregnant. So that was kind of fun because it ended up working out that we had a showcase for our studio in December. So I was 36 weeks pregnant by the time the showcase rolled around. And I wanted to, do something low key, like nothing too ambitious. I did a dance trapeze routine that was low to the ground. And I just kind of was selective about choosing my moves for things that were attainable at that point.
If you could talk about how you dealt with being pregnant and the anxiety that it creates when you've been through such a big loss. Yeah. And also, if you could share any tools that you think might help other women going through the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. So like I was saying, during the process of pregnancy, it's, I think, very common to kind of like withhold joy and anticipation, or at least go through it in like waves when you've had a loss. So I would kind of just like embrace it when it was there. When I was feeling joyful, I would buy baby clothes or a baby gift or have something that I was, looking forward to. And then, there's days that you are grieving, and maybe I was writing a journal entry to Adrian or doing some sort of like memorial tribute to my previous babies. And I just kind of tried to embrace that. I used the pregnancy apps that, tell you how far along you are and what sort of fruit size your baby is. There's a specific one that's for women who have gone through loss, and it's Pregnancy After Loss is what the name of it is. So it's an app, and that was helpful because then I could still, track the pregnancy, kind of look where we were in the process, read articles that were helpful for loss. It had a lot of resources and stuff in it. And it was, geared towards somebody who may be sensitive to certain issues. A lot of prenatal stuff is very, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but just kind of like joyful, naive, I guess. Everybody wants to be overjoyed and celebrate a pregnancy, but when you're kind of holding that with also knowing what can happen, it feels wrong, I guess, or it doesn't feel like honest, I guess, to just be only accepting the joy and not also going through the grief. So
yeah, I could imagine that wouldn't feel authentic.
Yeah, authentic's a good word. I was struggling finding what I was trying to say, but yeah, it doesn't feel authentic.
I mean, not the same, but it reminds me of that term, not toxic happiness, but toxic, like when you're not allowed somehow to
positivity,
toxic positivity. That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Where you're in an environment where you can't really dive into the other side of it.
Yeah, where you just don't feel like there's as much acceptance for maybe having some negative thoughts or some, realistic fears or anxiety around your pregnancy. That's completely normal. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, is sometimes it feels a little bit like toxic positivity when people talk to you also when you're pregnant, it's hard to field a lot of questions too, because when you start being like obviously pregnant and people ask you, like strangers, or in my case, my patients would be like, oh, like, when are you due, and is this your first, which was my least favorite question of all time, which I can't even count the amount of times that I've been asked, even since I've had her, because I never know how to answer that, and I'm a terrible liar, so I just don't. I usually say something like, no, it's complicated, or no, or this is my first living child, or like, I don't know. And then you have to watch their face go through their processing, like what they've just asked you and what that means. And then you feel bad for making them feel bad, but it's hard, like secondary watching somebody process that. But I had the same problem when I was pregnant with the first ones, going through, when I still looked pregnant after my 20-week like D&E procedure, and people are asking me about that, or, when are you due? And I'm like, actually, I'm not pregnant anymore. I just still look like I'm pregnant because it just happened. Or, the third trimester with Adrian, where I knew that she wasn't going to live, or, that I was going to be dealing with a loss immediately after delivery. And people just want to be so happy about, oh, are you excited? And you don't quite know how to answer that. So it's difficult. It's a hard line to walk, I guess. And I think most moms who have gone through any kind of losses really aren't fully relaxed until that baby comes out,
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, if we can think about other types of traumas, any, not as emotionally deep, but like a car wreck or anything, it just, the same type of scenario comes up, and it's really hard not to think of all the ways it could go badly. And are you just setting yourself up for being not on guard all the time and stressed about it? I can imagine it's so difficult to even like kind of, you're just holding your breath until the baby's born. And then the baby's born, and you're like, I have to keep this thing alive.
And then you balance the stress of, having a small being, especially in those first, newborn phase of like 4 weeks. But I was, I just tried to do my best to sort of walk that line. And like I was saying, I ended up performing at the showcase 36 weeks pregnant. I performed for the showcase at 36 weeks pregnant, and I wanted to perform to a song that was dedicated to Adrian, which was my baby that died at 9 weeks of age. So that felt meaningful too, that I could both be celebrating the fact that I was pregnant and that I was able to do, the things that I would like to do, but at the same time holding space for my previous loss and like dedicating that to her. So that felt good to be able to kind of do both at the same time.
No, I love it. And I'm sure it was inspirational to the people who were there watching as well. Let's talk about, do you have any birth story or labor story you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. So it's really hard not to compare your previous birth to, what you expect, like setting expectations for your next birth. Although, with Adrian, she was very small and she was breech, right? She came out butt first and she was only like 3 pounds, 8 ounces. So I knew I was going to be delivering vaginally a normal size baby, head first. So it's hard to compare those two things. But once you've gone through labor once, you think, oh, I kind of know what to expect. And, these are the steps, and I'll kind of understand my body's signals better. I was blessed to have a doula again this second round, and I made sure I called her a little bit sooner than I did with my first one. But yeah, it was totally different. My goal had been to do it unmedicated again. For Adrian, it was kind of for medical reasons that I was more dedicated to that. I didn't want her to be sedated at all, especially if she wasn't going to live very long or have to process like any sort of narcotic medications that I might be administered for pain relief. Can affect her breathing, etc. So I was very dedicated to doing it unmedicated for Adrian. But then once I had done that once, I thought, well, then I can probably do that again. But I ended up going to my last prenatal appointment, and I'd been feeling kind of weird that day, and my blood pressure was a little high. So they admitted me to triage. And then they planned to induce me because I was only 2 days from my due date at that point. So they figured, we don't know if this is like the beginning of preeclampsia or something, but let's just get that baby out of there. And I had been induced previously, so I wasn't that worried about that. I was like, yeah, let's get this going. But then by the time I got up to the labor and delivery room and they were checking me in, my water broke. So they were like, oh, okay. Good timing. I guess we're doing this anyway. So that was kind of nice because then I was like already in the hospital. I kind of got to go through all the early labor stuff with all my things already because I'd been feeling so crappy when I went to my prenatal appointment. I actually made my husband drive me and put the hospital bags in the car. So I was all prepared and ready to be checked into the hospital. So that was great. And then my contractions started, everything seemed to be going pretty good. I think we checked in the evening and I was in active labor with like regular contractions by 10 p.m. or so. And then we didn't call the doula until like 3 a.m. when we sort of ran out of our comfort measures sort of thing. We had gotten in and out of the bathtub and that kind of thing. It was starting to get a lot more painful. So and then once the doula came, it was another, 5 hours of trying to figure out, different positions and breathing techniques and using the bathtub and that kind of thing. And based on how it had happened last time, it felt like it was progressing like exactly the same as when I was in the bathtub before. And my labor had gone really fast with Adrian. Like in 90 minutes, I think I went from like 6 centimeters to like 10 or whatever. So that's sort of what I was expecting to happen again, especially since it was second baby coming out of there. So, I had the shakes, the contractions were really intense and lasting longer. I was like, all right, let's check my cervix again. And I think when we had that checked, it was 4 centimeters. I was like, what?
Only?
Yeah,
oh, man.
You guys are killing me. So yeah, my cervix like softened and effaced, but my cervix was still pretty closed and higher up than it was supposed to be, like the station. So then, we went back to the drawing board and we're doing more comfort measures, we tried to do more walking and use gravity and that kind of thing. So, but it got to the point where it had been 8 hours of what I would call active labor because of the intensity of the contractions and the frequency and duration. And I had only gotten to 5 centimeters. So I ended up opting for an epidural, which I think was a very good choice because at that point it had been like, it was going on 18 hours, I think, that my water had been broke already. And, they start worrying about infection risk, and my helpers were getting tired. They'd been doing like hip squeezes and stuff for me, and I could feel that they were shaky. I was like, oh, great. So, I'm dying and then they're dying also. This is not going to be good. And I'm ultimately really glad I did the epidural because by the time, I got that at like 8 or something in the morning and rested, for a few hours. I ended up having to push for 2 hours. So it was pretty significant pushing as well. And I think I just would have been way too exhausted, like I think the likelihood that I would have had like been called arrested labor and had to get a C-section is pretty high. Especially with my water being broke for quite some time. So I'm was happier to have done the epidural than have to do that. So yeah, it was a good. Mm-hmm.
So you pushed for 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really great epidural too. I was able to feel enough that I could change positions and stuff. So I was able to like do hands and knees and different things to push because my cervix, even though it was like 10 centimeters, still had like a little lip, I guess. And my cervix was still a little higher, like station wise than it should have been. So they were like, the baby still needs to descend just a little bit more against the cervix to pull it down. So we did some different positions to help with that. And they did, the nurse that was with me was great. I told her that I'd had a perineal laceration the first time, like a 2nd-degree tear. And I was trying to avoid it for this one, but she did everything that she could and it ended up tearing in the same spot. So, oh well. Yeah, but everything, came out great. She was born healthy and I did some pelvic floor PT before the delivery, and I've started doing some after. So I was already kind of on top of that. I don't know if you've heard of perineal massage or stretching techniques.
Talk about it anyway, because I think my listeners would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So they recommend it starting around 36 weeks pregnant, like maybe a few weeks before your delivery. But it's basically manual massage of the rim of muscle tissue around the opening. So that helps kind of relax the muscle, but also help your body adjust to like sort of the pain signals from stretching, so that it's not as sensitized to that, because our normal response to things stretching and feeling sharply painful is to tighten up, and so we do the opposite with our pelvic floor, that we need to be relaxing it. So along with like breathing techniques, you're also doing some manual stretching techniques to kind of learn how to override that sensation. So I did that with the help of my pelvic floor PT. She coached me through that. I did a little program with her. And I think that was helpful because my epidural was definitely wearing off by the time I was pushing that baby out. So I was like, I think I can feel a lot more than I'm supposed to feel.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah, everything is sharply painful. Like, shouldn't it be like more like dull, like pressure? And then by the time she went to stitch me up, I was like, no, you need to inject some lidocaine down there because I feel all of that. So
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And your time as a mama now, what are your thoughts? Because you had a very unique situation where, this is a rainbow baby, but, Adrian was alive in your arms for 9 weeks. And then,
yes.
Yeah. So tell me about that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say I was prepared for the fact that it would be difficult to kind of relive some of those newborn experiences, having the previous memories and the trauma, essentially. So I would say that my husband and I were on top of it as best we could, like in terms of like we were doing therapy and we were doing couples counseling to try to like prepare for this that was coming. But it was still really hard. I was surprised at the amount of like PTSD that came up, especially in those first 2 weeks, because Charlotte, like most babies, lost weight in those first few days, when you're waiting for your milk to come in. And it's like, those are the stressful time periods usually for most moms when you're learning how to breastfeed. And like day 3 through 5, it usually takes a little while for that milk to come in from when they're born. And she dropped a pretty significant amount of weight because she was like 7 pounds, 5 ounces when she was born. And then at our visit at like day 2, she was 6 pounds, 10 ounces. And then by day 3, she was like 6 pounds, 6 ounces at home on my scale. And yeah, I had a little bit of a meltdown because it was just, that was the main thing with Adrian, is her being worried about her weight and her eating and her like failure to thrive, like worrying about my breast milk, that I had enough to feed her and keep her alive. And we ended up, because her weight was dropping, having to supplement and pump. So we were doing triple feeding, which is essentially what we were doing with Adrian for, it was different because I wasn't able to nurse Adrian because she didn't have latch. But the fact that we were supplementing with syringes and pumping so much, I was like, oh my God, this feels exactly the same. And it was just, that inner body trauma response to that was pretty intense. So, that only lasted a week or two, because I think by 2.5 weeks she got back to her birth weight, and things got better. Of course, you tell yourself it's going to get better. It's just day by day. We got to get through this period. But it was a lot, triple feeding is rough because you're already, feeding every 2 to 3 hours when it's a newborn. But if you're nursing and then having to supplement her and then pumping, like that eats a lot of time, So then by the time you're done doing that, then you're feeding her again. So when do you sleep? I don't know. Yeah.
And remind me with Adrian, like, were you guys just sleeping, co-sleeping?
Yeah. Well, with Adrian, it was a little bit more complicated because she had really bad reflux and she had to be like upright a lot. So people had to hold her. So at least with Charlotte, we were able to put her down, so she could sleep in a bassinet in our room. And she was pretty good about like being able to be put down. That helped a lot. Because with Adrian, it was just like you constantly had to have at least 2 people like on deck, so that you could pee or do other things. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear that you can put Charlotte down. This one here, this little bean, couldn't really do that.
No.
Yeah. So there was other things that, for example, like she wouldn't take a pacifier for any reason. And I'm happy now that she's a toddler because I don't have to wean her off of it. But
true.
Man, like that thing would have been really useful if she would have taken it.
Yeah, I will say Charlotte has a very good suck reflex, which is part of why our nursing in the beginning was terrible because she was just a nipple chomper.
Nipple chomper. I've never heard that, and I think I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, there was a point where I like pulled her off my boob and was like, "You are a mean baby. What is going on?" So yeah, we had some latch issues we had to adjust. We ended up having to introduce a nipple shield, which did help her a lot. We're still working on weaning off of that, but it made her able to nurse more effectively. So we were able to stop supplementing, and now I only pump a few times a day. So thank God things got easier.
So those gums were coming down on your nipple, but those the shields, it does create some structure for the baby, right? If they're having trouble.
Yeah, it's like a little plastic film sort of that has, I don't want to say it's like a bottle nipple because it's not that big, but it has a little bit of form to it. So it's easier for them to latch. I don't have like flat or inverted nipples, but they just didn't stick out enough for her to get it to the part in her mouth where she could like make the latch. And she couldn't open her mouth like kind of wide enough to get it deep enough to pull it in. So, that helped her a lot just to get the sensation to start the suck. So it saved us being able to breastfeed because I think otherwise we would have both gotten so frustrated. Breastfeeding is hard. It's hard, I don't think people talk about that enough. At some point with lactation, because I was getting some support from the lactation consultants after delivery. They said that it's like 96% of people have trouble breastfeeding, some trouble breastfeeding, especially.
And when it's problematic, it's a huge problem. It's not like if it's problematic, it's a small problem. It's always a big problem.
No, it's always a big problem. I mean, what more do you have to worry about than like feeding your baby?
Right.
Know? Yeah. And I think it's an emotional thing for moms too. You feel a lot of like guilt, where beat yourself up about, why is this not working? Why are we not able to figure this out? And, that's tough too. I think it was day 3 that she was starting to act like she was hungry, even after she was like done doing as much nursing as we could figure out together, and I was pumping as much as I could, but my milk hadn't come in all the way yet. So I didn't have enough to even supplement her. And I like broke down crying when we weighed her and she'd lost more weight. And I called up a friend, and she is nursing right now, like a 7-month-old, or she was at the time 7 months. So she just pumped some and brought some breast milk over, and that's what we did. And that got us through like those 1 or 2 days, and that made the biggest difference for me.
Oh man, that's so stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that feeling, it's like, it's so interesting because and the words are like on the tip of my tongue. Like, it's so visceral, it's so ingrained in your body. I'm the mother. I need to be able to care for them, and this is my natural response to caring, and my body's not naturally doing it. So what does that make me?
Right.
Like, how good am I at this if my body won't even do it? And that is so rough on, you're already sleep deprived.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all good at telling ourselves that we're not good enough for whatever reason, it sucks that's where we all go, but it's easy to do. So, and I had some, formula that some company had sent me in the mail, and I was not going to be afraid to use it if I needed to, but it was much easier to just get some breast milk from a friend than have to also do formula supplementing. So made it through, but
the one story I have about someone else's breast milk is not feeding a baby, but so at the time where it was me and 2 other girlfriends in our 7-person friend group were pregnant at the same time. And then the one who had the eldest child in the group, so she was no longer pregnant, had an eye sty on her eye.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we're on the group chat and they're like, put some breast milk on. And so it was hilarious because it was like, whose breast milk are we sending over to dump on our friend's eye? I don't think we actually did it, but it was a hilarious
No, that's what
discussion.
They say. Breast milk's good for everything. Yeah. It's got immune cells in it, and so it can help with healing properties.
Yeah. I mean, it was really a little funny moment for me and my friends. And we have funny moments like that every single day, it feels like.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're trying to organize two of them have birthdays coming up. One's turning 40 and one's turning somewhere in there. And we are trying to, the thread of us trying to figure out how to have brunch on Sunday with all of the kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's just like, and it's not trying to, we already did the whole text chain of when it was going to be. So we decided like 11 o'clock on Sunday. And then we try to figure out, like, where are we going?
Yeah.
What's kid-friendly? Oh, no, LA has rain and it's cold it's never that way here.
Yeah.
So, like, all these beautiful outdoor places are off the list.
Right.
Bean. It's just like, it's funny. That's why there's so many memes. Right, Bean?
Yeah. It was kind of beautiful that my friend was willing to drop off some milk for me. It's not the first time that she's done that either, because actually with Adrian, we had the same little hump, where my breast milk hadn't come in. I wasn't pumping enough yet to be able to supplement her. And so she had done that before, but I also had donated milk to her. So after Adrian died, I continued actually like weaning myself slowly, but I had a stash of breast milk in the freezer and I had donated some to the hospital, but they're like very specific about requirements and like medications that you would be on and that kind of thing. So I was only able to donate some of it to them. And all the other stuff I gave to my friend Megan, and that helped her be able to breastfeed her daughter through like her goal of, I think it was a year, because, balancing with work and pumping and everything, she was like barely making what she wanted. And so my extra ended up helping her get over the hump too. And it was kind of a beautiful process. And she invited me over when she had the last bag of what I had given her. And I got to feed her daughter that with the bottle, like my last bag of breast milk from Adrian, which was, yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was really special.
Oh my goodness. Man, sometimes people really come through for each other. Not all the time, but when it does happen, it's amazing.
Yeah.
For both you and her.
Mm-hmm.
So you are in the thick of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look back to the entire process, which is a couple years, right? 3-4 years.
Yeah. It feels like nonstop since basically 2018 was when I got pregnant, and January 2019 was my first loss. So, and it's all been just like back-to-back pregnancies and postpartum, and yeah. So,
from two different angles, like your body
mm-hmm.
and then your emotional stuff.
Yeah.
If you look back, what is your takeaway? If there is a takeaway or a couple, and then also, if you had advice for any women who are maybe, in it right now, IVF or not, losses, whether you can, have the babies just traditional ways or not.
I mean, it was a long journey. I think going in and out of pregnancy and postpartum has taught me a lot about grace, I guess, with my own body, and also my ability to recover, right? Because I have had to like rehab myself so many times now that I feel at least confident that I can get there, even though the timeline may be different from subsequent pregnancies. The fact that I can get back to a place where I feel really strong is comforting, so I worry about it less. So that's a good thing. Emotionally, I am a lot stronger than I was previously. I think I've always been a kind of stoic, person, especially balancing with my professional career, just, how I handle processing emotions. I am now to a place where I'm a lot more willing to be vulnerable and share about my experiences or be honest about them. I'm able to talk about them more through a lot of therapy. I mean, I've done like two years at least of therapy since losing Adrian, and I definitely feel a lot stronger in that regard. There used to be a time where I would, I guess, separate things, between work and Ariel and my personal life. But I kind of got to the point where I was like, why am I dividing my individuality? Like, why can't I just be myself in all of these realms and share my experiences? And so I've been able to do that a lot more. And I think that ends up serving me and other people better. I think I've had some very meaningful conversations with my patients, or like been able to relate more to them when they are going through grief or loss, or just trauma in general. So I end up gaining a lot from going through the experience. But it's going to be an ongoing process. And we plan to, share that with Charlotte as she gets older too. We have some children's books on grief and loss, and, we plan to show her pictures of her sister, and so she'll know that she was a part of the family.
How about any advice for families going through this?
I would say use your resources. To some degree, that is a privilege of mine that I'm able to also afford and set up those resources. But in terms of making sure that you have therapy or grief counseling, making sure that you have family or friends support, or at least like one or two people that you can be 100% with, and let them know about what you're going through. Because it's common, I think, for our communities to sort of forget, once major traumatic things have happened to you, in the acute period, they may be there, but in the longer term, people assume you've just gotten over it and life goes on, but that's not real life. That's, your loss is still always there. So making sure that you're able to talk about that with somebody. And I guess, reaching out to people with similar experiences can be really helpful too. I would say, Facebook groups or people that I've met along the way have played roles in helping me. And I'm still helping others, who reach out to me for questions or support at different points in the process. And I'd be happy to be that for somebody else too, if you want to include my contact info or, social media.
Yeah, they're going to be able to find you at Alter Ego. Isn't that you?
Yeah, Alter Ego Ariel.
Yeah, I have to say what inspires me is your willingness to open up to this worldwide community. And I know you're super busy. You're in the middle of what I call purgatory, which is the 4th trimester where everything's cloudy. And, carving out time to talk to this audience because, again, I think we've talked about it before, but there's somebody out there who's listening and we don't know, they don't necessarily reach out, and you could be saving their day, their life, their week. So, I appreciate it. And then also now I feel like I kind of want to, after I edit and put this one out, I kind of want to listen to all 3 back to back, maybe when I'm doing all the laundry or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And go for the entire ride because, oh man, to me, the second episode, the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Just from like a intellectual standpoint was the most intriguing.
Yeah.
Because you had all this information now. You knew genetically what you had to find and what you had to, take out of the puzzle. And then you had to go and figure out what embryo that was going to be. And that was the one that was going to go in your body, and pins and needles for the transplant. And just from a story perspective, like if I was a movie maker, just fascinating. And, oh man, I have so much anxiety myself. I'm so glad I'm having anxiety, listening to it. I can't imagine being in it.
Yeah. We actually, we named our embryo before she was implanted. That's so cute. It was an accident. We were out to dinner with my sister, and my husband and I never really agree on names. He's very, very picky. And we were talking about it, and my grandma, my Nana, had just died right around the time that we transferred that embryo. So she had died right before the transfer, and her name was Charlene. And so I wanted to use the root of Char, because that was one of her nicknames, was she went by Char. And I didn't really want to use Charlene because it was a little dated at this point. So we went with Charlotte, and we call her Charlie for short because we kind of
okay, so beautiful, and then also so cute.
Yeah,
like Charlie.
Yeah, we like nicknames that are kind of, they could go either way in terms of gender. So that we definitely agreed upon. And then her middle name is Rain, which is spelled like Rahne, which is Scottish, but it's a comic book character that my husband pulled from New Mutants, which is also where Adrian's middle name came from, Ileana, and they're friends in the New Mutants. So that felt right, that they could have that connection. And the character herself is actually like a werewolf, changes into a wolf. And I went into labor on the full moon in January, which was the wolf moon, which we thought was hilarious. And it was also in the Gemini constellation at the time, the moon was. And I'm a Gemini, and so is Adrian. I was like, that's too weird.
And you or you could go through the painstaking choice of the name and then just end up calling the child Bean, and then she'll be 20, and then she'll just be Bean. I don't know if this is going to wear off. She knows her real name. Yeah, we know it too, but we never use it. And I just, you can't, if you're going to be the president, you have to have a actual name. But maybe she'll just be Bean.
No, that's fair. I mean, my husband is the king of nicknames, so ours has a million nicknames too. I think she started as Creature, which maybe not so attractive, and now is often called Babyhead. So there's that.
This is awesome. Rebecca Ann, you are an inspiration. Your perseverance through this entire process is astounding. I'm so happy for you and your husband and your new family. And it's just so astounding and amazing that you've decided to share this with the world. It's a very personal story, and so brave of you. So thank you so much for being with us now 3 times. All right, my friends, teacher training is coming. I also made this thing called Aerial Rehab. It's meant to be the bridge between PT and your aerial class. Lots of micro progressions to strengthen what you need for things like hip keys, inversions, etc., and regular climbing as well. For after, postpartum, for after surgery and injury. All right, guys, thank you so much to Asa Watkins, sound engineer. Honor me with the 5-star rating and review anywhere you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for being here. If you know somebody, or if you think you are maybe a great candidate for this podcast, please reach out to me. I'd love to have you, and have a wonderful week. This is the Expecting Aerialist with Digitant Podcasts.